There's a dark side to the internet we aren't supposed to see. Being a broke college student, I would do anything for money. That's why when I came across a sketchy website offering money just to complete a small task, I was hooked. I'd heard of doing online surveys to make money, but I always thought they were just scams. Even though this website I found was sketchy, I wanted to at least give it a try. And after 5 hours of filling in stupid surveys, I'd actually managed to accumulate about $45 in cash and gift cards, and everything seemed completely normal so far. $9 an hour. Not bad at all. I was about to close my laptop up for the day and head to a bar in an attempt to drown out my melancholy when I first saw it. It shouldn't even have been noticeable, but for one reason or another it was. At the bottom corner of the website that I was on existed a tiny singular advertisement. Maybe it was the simplicity that got me. Plain black letters in a tacky font that read "Surveys for Cash" overlapped a completely white background. At least they were direct with the message. One more couldn't hurt, I thought. Might as well scrape together a little bit more booze money before heading out. I sat back down, clicked on the picture link, and prepared myself to grind through some more painstaking inquiries. The first few questions were simple enough. I guess they weren't really questions, but more data collection. My name, age, and occupation. I thought it was kind of weird that they also asked my height and weight, but it wasn't unheard of. The first real question was a different story, though. I must have stared at it, eyes wide and mouth agape for God knows how long. What the actual hell? I whispered to myself in plain English. This is what popped up on my screen. How strong is your urge to currently look behind you? There were 5 options below, ranging from not at all to overwhelming. There was no feasible reason why I should have been afraid at that moment, but I was. I tightened my breathing, trying to make out any subtle noises behind me. There were none. After maybe about 5 minutes, I worked up the courage to look. There was nothing. I sighed in relief and scoffed at myself at the same time. This must have been some kind of joke. However, I decided to entertain it, answering neutral and clicking on to the next question. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was so wrong. The next question came up. Why would you look behind you? I smirked before simply typing in a "I don't know" in the response box and once again clicking next. This was the third question. You're on a plane. Apart from you, there is only one other passenger who is sitting somewhere behind you. At some point, you get up to go to the washroom and find that the man is gone. You check to see if he is in the only bathroom on the plane, but he isn't. What do you do? Again, I must have stupidly stared at it for nearly 10 minutes. Was this some kind of obscure personality test? I mean, it must have been, right? I put the same answer that I used for the last question. I don't know. It was true. I didn't know how I was supposed to answer it. I clicked next again, now more intrigued than anything, not knowing this would be the biggest mistake of my life. So far, the questions hadn't been too bad, but this is exactly when they started to take a horrifying turn. You're in a hotel room but are awoken by a rapid knocking at your window. You peek through the blinds, seeing what appears to be a man missing both his eyes. He puts his mouth to the glass and tells you to kill the woman in the bathroom immediately. Do you listen to him? I felt extremely uncomfortable after reading this. I didn't even want to answer. I continued flicking through the questions, but they got more and more strange as I went on. I don't know why I kept going, but I just felt like I had to. I wanted to know what was going on, but after flicking a few more questions forward, one specifically stopped me in my tracks. You are watching home videos with your mother. One of the tapes include footage of her being murdered by a masked intruder. Your mother simply laughs at this footage without saying anything. In your opinion, is this a cause for concern? But that's not what freaked me out the most. As soon as I read it, I heard 2 knocks. I immediately froze, panicking and not knowing what to do. I ran over to my blinds and pulled them shut so no one could see in, then crawled my way over to my door. I slowly raised my head and looked through my peephole to find a guy standing there, frantically shaking his head and mouthing no while making direct eye contact with me. He looked terrified. Obviously, I didn't open up. Over the next hour, I received about 10 phone calls from somebody named the Auditor on my caller ID. They left a message every time, but each one was just a recording that consisted of somebody saying numbers through heavy static. Actually, it sounded more like screaming now that I think about it. About an hour into this thing and I was on the verge of a mental breakdown. I was petrified of looking behind me even though there was no indication that anything should have been there. I heard some soft scratching coming from my vent at one point, so I moved my couch over it. I had no idea what to do. Either I was going insane or someone was about to break into my apartment. Eventually, I ran back to my PC and decided to finish the survey. I rushed through the questions, randomly selecting answers until I reached what appeared to be the end of the survey. However, it wasn't a question. It was simply a statement. Don't let them in. They're not to be trusted. Almost as if it were on cue, I heard more knocking at my door about 5 seconds after reading this. As slowly and silently as I could, I moved over and looked through the peephole once again. It was a different person than the one I'd seen earlier. She was a woman, looking to be in her mid-20s. She was wearing a thick blazer, despite it being around 90 Fahrenheit outside. She was also wearing sunglasses, so I could never really tell where she was actually looking. She eventually took a piece of paper out of her pocket and slipped it under the door. I looked down and read it. It's lying. Leave your apartment immediately. I don't know who to believe anymore, but I'm starting to feel like I should go outside.